So as we're getting closer to the launch of the Nintendo Switch 2, we are still getting little tidbits of information officially from Nintendo. However, today it looks like we might actually have some pretty big secrets about the Nintendo Switch 2 that might have come out that we probably would never get confirmed officially. However, it's looking to be happening here because of a major hack that happened to a video game studio. So over the past weekend, it looks like the video game studio Arc System Works had unfortunately suffered a major compromise and hack that happened, and it basically leaked a lot of confidential information out onto the internet, including documents and other information. And if you don't know this video game studio, they're behind a lot of fighting games such as Granblue Fantasy Versus and Guilty Gear and Dragon Ball FighterZ. And so it looks like that from all of this information, we also had information that came out about the Nintendo Switch 2. Now there's pretty much three big things that people are talking about when it comes to the info about the Nintendo Switch 2, but of course there's a lot of other stuff too. If you're a big fan of like Arc System Works and their games, I think that there was like DLC that leaked for like Guilty Gear and other stuff like that too, so you can definitely look into that type of stuff if that interests you. Alright, but when it comes to the Nintendo Switch 2, the first piece of information that came out is from like confidential documents and emails I think and other information that came out, which is heavily implying that the Nintendo Switch 2 was actually supposed to release earlier than the planned release date that we have right now for June 5th, and it seems like a lot of this was hinting that the system was trying to come out in March of 2025. Now, if the Switch 2 was really trying to release in March of this year, then I feel like that this really kind of tells you that Nintendo was in fact trying to do pretty much the exact same thing with the Switch 2 that they did with the Switch 1, and if this is the case, then I feel like that we would have definitely seen the reveal for the Nintendo Switch 2 sort of at the end of last year, probably around like September or November, where we were hearing a lot of rumors that there was going to be some type of Switch 2 reveal happening around that time as well, and maybe that was kind of still the plans at that point, and we were supposed to get a reveal that was going to happen, because if you remember, September was pretty much when we had like all of those really kind of detailed leaks that came out about the Switch 2 in terms of like the actual CAD documents, and those pretty much turned out to be 100% real in terms of exactly how the Nintendo Switch 2 looks and how it functions and how it works and where all the buttons are and everything. So maybe Nintendo was planning to do something, and then internally it ended up getting delayed and they moved it to June because maybe some stuff like Mario Kart or Donkey Kong wasn't ready, and who really knows what kind of happened behind the scenes, but I do feel like it makes sense that Nintendo was trying to release the Switch 2 earlier in the year. Now the second piece of information is about game key cards, and it was just a few days ago that I made a video talking about kind of a secret or rumor that's been going around for why so many games on the Nintendo Switch 2 are being game key cards, as there's definitely some games that you can understand if it's like a really massive game that's going to be so big that you can't fit it onto like a typical 64GB Nintendo Switch 2 cartridge, that you're probably going to have to do the game key card route. That's probably what's going to happen with like Final Fantasy VII Remake, because that game even on PS4 is an 88GB game, and then once you add like the Yuffie DLC and all of that, that's going to be in the Intergrade version that's coming to the Nintendo Switch 2, it's probably going to be like a 100GB game, and so you're not really going to be able to fit that into one cartridge. So I'm assuming that that game is probably going to be a game keycard game. But then there's also other games like Puyo Puyo Tetris, which is a 4GB game, but that's also a game keycard. And so it was really unusual to see that, and the rumor ended up becoming that Nintendo wasn't really offering any type of cartridge sizes to developers besides a 64GB cartridge, which was really expensive, so a lot of developers would just choose to do the game keycard route as it would save them a lot of money. And that's very different compared to what we have on the current Switch, where on the current Switch you actually have an entire range of cartridges that Nintendo offers. They all come with a different amount of storage, and then Nintendo can kind of give developers the choice to choose exactly how big of a cartridge they want, and they can try to optimize their game to a certain amount to try to get it into the cartridge. And well, it looks like this leak from Arc System Works is adding even more credibility now to this being the case, as we've got this post here from Necro Felipe from Universe of Nintendo, and if we translate it here from Portuguese, it says right here, thanks to the leaks from Arc System Works, only 3 types of formats have been found to be available for games being planned for the Switch 2. DL, which means digital game only, 64GB, a cartridge with the full game, or something codenamed Potion, which is essentially a codename for the key card format. And so these are pretty much the only 3 options that it seems like that Arc System Works had in their documents when it comes to Switch 2 games. So DL would be a game that is only going to be digital. The only way to get it is from the Nintendo eShop. then you've only got an option for a 64GB cartridge, and then codename Potion, which is basically what key cards are. And so I'm guessing that the key card cartridges are probably going to be really small, maybe just a couple megabytes, because they're not really holding any data. It's basically just kind of like the little license inside there to give you access to downloading the entire game from the eShop. And I even saw somebody on like a forum say that it's called like Potion, or they codenamed it Potion because the cartridge is basically kind of like an empty bottle, and then you download, or you basically put in like the actual content of the game once you put it inside, and it basically fills up like the potion when you download it. So maybe that's kind of like their thought process when they kind of came up with that code name. But it basically confirms now that these are pretty much the only three options, and they don't really have other options when it comes to the cartridge sizes. And so this is unfortunate because it does seem to explain why so many third-party games are all game key cards on the Nintendo Switch 2. And I really do hope that going more into the generation, Nintendo does start to offer other cartridge sizes to developers so that we can actually start getting full games on the cartridge again, because if we have to go the entire generation where it's only going to just be game key cards for pretty much every third-party game, then that's really going to suck for like the next 6 to 8 years, where you're pretty much just going to have to make sure that you have a really big micro SD card that's like 2 or 4 terabytes to fit pretty much everything onto your system. And finally, the last thing that we have here is the most exciting one, which is about a potential brand new game. And so it says right here, rumor, new Arc System Works game coming to the Nintendo Switch 2 in November. The only thing that we know about it is the code name, which is codenamed Watari, and that the game is going to be utilizing Unreal Engine 5.4. But besides that, we have no idea of what type of game this could be or what it's going to be like or anything. And it does mention the Switch 2, but I think people were able to discover that it's not appearing to be coming to any other platform, so that this could actually be like an exclusive game only on the Nintendo Switch 2. And if that's the case, then maybe Arc System Works is actually having like some type of collaboration with Nintendo using like a Nintendo IP. And if that's the case, I would honestly be very excited to see what they could make. And considering that they're known for having like these really awesome fighting games, I think having some type of Arc System Works fighting game with a Nintendo IP on the Switch 2 would be amazing. Now don't get me wrong, I do love Super Smash Bros, but I do feel like having a more conventional and like traditional fighting game where you just have like the two characters on each side and then the health bars on top and doing combos and grabs and stuff to each other could be really nice to have on a Nintendo system with Nintendo IP. And having a talented studio like this, which is pretty much known for making these types of games like Arc System Works, doing that could be incredible for what they could come up with. And there's so many IPs that I feel like that they could choose from. The one that comes to my mind is Fire Emblem. And now all of you unfunny people in the comments are gonna say, bro, just play Super Smash Bros. But I do think that actually having a real like Fire Emblem fighting game where it's just like the two characters on each side and you fight each other could be really amazing. We've already seen a bunch of really good looking anime style fighting games like Grand Blue Fantasy vs Rising, and I do feel like having that type of game with a similar art style and Fire Emblem characters could be something really special, because Fire Emblem also just has so many characters to choose from. There's like what, 16 or so games at this point, so many like really iconic lords that they could put into the game, a lot of fan favorite characters, a ton of units, and just picking out a handful of characters from each game, I think you could have an insane roster of just Fire Emblem characters, and they all could have like different like types of movesets and things too, because you could have some characters riding on like a horse, some maybe on like a wyvern or dragon or something, maybe on like a Pegasus. You could have characters using like magic attacks like that are mages and stuff. You could have some using swords, some using lances, some using bows. Like I really do feel like you could have an insane roster of so much variety and just have a really amazing Fire Emblem fighting game. You could honestly say the same thing about Xenoblade as well, where even though Xenoblade has fewer games with only like Xenoblade 1, 2, 3, and X, there's still so many other characters from all of those games that you could add into having an entire Xenoblade fighting game where you could have like all of the main characters like Shulk and Noah and Rex, and then have some of the other characters that people love like Fiora, Melia, Uni. You could add like rare blades from Xenoblade 2, some of the hero characters like Ethel from Xenoblade 3, a whole bunch of antagonists to choose from like Console N and Mallow Talos and Zanza and stuff. Like, you could make an entire crazy game just having Xenoblade characters and then adding a bunch of characters from like X also with like Elma and Lao and all these other great characters. So you could definitely make that work, but it doesn't even have to be like an anime style type of fighting game either. They could use other Nintendo IPs also, because I feel like having a Zelda fighting game could be amazing also. There's still so many Zelda characters to choose from between all the games too, so you can of course have like your standard characters like Link and Ganondorf and Zelda, but then you could pick like a bunch of fan favorite characters from all of the Zelda games like Midna and Girahim, and you could add some of like the champions from Breath of the Wild like Rivali and Urbosa, and you could easily make an entire Zelda fighting game roster too. So I do feel like just having any type of fighting game with a Nintendo IP, there is a lot of potential, so I would honestly love for that to be the case with what this game turns out to be. But yeah, that is pretty much all the information that we have right now about the Nintendo Switch 2 from this really big Arc System Works hack that occurred. So yeah, if you guys enjoyed the video, definitely be sure to click that like button and also subscribe to the channel as well. I'm definitely gonna have some more videos talking about the Nintendo Switch 2, so be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on that. Comment down below and let me know what you think about all of this. How do you feel about all of this information, this Arc System Works game that could be in development for the Nintendo Switch 2? And all the information about the game key cards and how the Switch 2 was supposed to release earlier. So definitely comment down below and let me know what you think about it. But if you don't have anything to say, just comment your favorite emoji down below for some engagement. I would really appreciate it. Go follow me on Twitter at @ActualAero to be featured in videos, and also join my Discord server as well. We've got a bunch of people in there who are always talking about Pokemon and Smash Bros and Nintendo, so definitely be sure to join that. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you so much for watching.